Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1151. Did you all take me for a fool? I vaguely sensed that something was amiss, but I did not know what was wrong. Due to the limits of the skills that the Three Holy Lands practices, it takes a large amount of energy to enter the 9 illusory quicksand nirvana formation. For the sake of confirming the situation, I couldn't care so much. Seeing that huge boulders were falling from the pillar of heaven's mountains, I went in to check. Only to find out that there was no more 9 illusory quicksand in the 9 illusory quicksand nirvana formation. The formation had completely ceased. The moment it came to a halt, it was the same as announcing to the world that the seal on pillar of heaven's mountains no longer existed. Gu Han's eyes turned completely red at this point. Jie was on the verge of tears. As an old man who had lived for a long time, to show this sort of emotions, it was visible that his mind is completely agitated. This was the extreme collapse of one's belief of his entire life. Jun Moxie sighed internally. No wonder Gu Han seemed a little weak in the battle this time, unlike the previous time I saw him. So this was the reason. He had already used up too much of his powers in the 9 illusory quicksand nirvana formation. I immediately came out and questioned Shan Kuang. Where did all the 9 illusory quicksand go? A frighteningly sinister look filled Gu Han's eyes. And at that time, Shan Kuang was on Mount Heaven Saint, plundering all our spirit herbs. This person's insatiable greed truly raised people's hackles. Jun Moxie was also stumped. You've committed such a grave crime. Instead of quickly fleeing, you did not forget to take more advantage. This is too conceited, right? But he didn't know that it was not that Shan Kuang did not wish to go. He wanted to leave more than anyone else. But he just had to discover the immortal soul herb that was planted on Mount Heaven Saint. He couldn't completely fuse with his body as his soul was too powerful for the body to contain. And this immortal soul herb is the treasure that completely gets rid of this problem. As long as he can consecutively use the immortal soul herb for a month, twice a day, 3 strands each time, he could truly return to the complete strength of Shan Kuang when he was at his peak, with no negative side effects. So Shan Kuang was really left without a choice. He could have just bid his farewell and vanished without a trace. No one able to find him. Even after they found him they still could not do anything about him. But because of those immortal soul herb, he lingered behind. And Shan Kuang was well aware, from the looks of the pillar of heaven's mountains, it was going to collapse soon. The 3 holy lands, Heaven Saint Palace will be wiped out. The moment it came crashing down, these immortal soul herb would be gone. If he missed this opportunity, his dream of recovering his strength would have to wait till God knows how long. So Shan Kuang was also very depressed and had to make a difficult decision. Just as he was collecting the immortal soul herb in a frenzy, Gu Han suddenly appeared to call him to account. Shan Kuang naturally was unwilling to hand the 9 illusory quicksand that he had already gotten out again. So both parties couldn't come to an agreement and was about to fight. But just at that moment, the pillar of heaven's mountains suddenly collapsed. Gu Han was naturally enraged and on the verge of going mad, and Shan Kuang, because of Gu Han's interception, only collected half of the required amount of immortal soul herb. So he was also furious. Both parties began to fight. The experts from Heaven Saint Palace slowly joined in the battle. Right under the collapsing pillar of heaven's mountains, they engaged in a fierce battle. Just as they fought, suddenly, all the volcanoes also began to erupt. This was truly a case of blessings that never came in pairs. Misfortune does not come singly. Both parties were peak experts. They fought as they retreated, giving pursuit the entire way. The experts from 3 holy lands intended to catch Jun Xie even if it cost them their life, to snatch the 9 illusory quicksand back. And Jun Xie never regarded them from the start. Besides, he was also fearful that if any of those experts self-destructed on himself, even though his current body was tough, it would still sustain injuries. Thus, he continued to battle along, afraid to completely crush the hopes of those from Heaven's Saint Palace. Plus there were newly erupted volcanoes all around. No expert could have no qualms in face of the might of nature. Just like this, they fought and ran. Just when Jun Xie thought he could already escape and not worry about the threat from the opponent's self-destructing, young Master Jun appeared at this point in time, and presented the most shocking gift, bringing this surprise, from the start all the way till the curtains fall. In this way, both parties truly had poor luck. I still cannot understand. Why did Jun Xie have to be this ruthless this time? Taking all of the 9 illusory quicksand at one go. Every time the misty illusory manor comes to retrieve the 9 illusory quicksand, the Holy Land never obstructed them and never made it difficult for them. Every time they come, they're the distinguished guests of Heaven's Saint Palace. Could it be because 1,000 years of peace is too short? They can just come to retrieve it. So why must they be this merciless? One elder said, stroking his beard. This is a very simple question. Because Jun Xie wants the Jun family to monopolize the misty illusory manor. If he leaves any 9 illusory quicksand behind, the Jun family will never be able to do that. He is cutting off the hopes of the Miao family directly. As long as the 9 illusory quicksand is all in his hands, then as long as the Miao family, as well as the other families' wishes for the misty illusory manor to continue existing, they will have to lower their heads to the Jun family. Jun Moxie said indifferently. What Jun Xie wants is the misty illusory manor. Nothing else. But when there is no more 9 illusory quicksand, the Nirvana formation will not be able to continue working. With the collapse of the Pillar of Heaven's mountains, all the members of the strange races will be able to invade, and the ones that will suffer will be the lives of the Xian continent. Zhang Kuang is also an expert of his generation, and his seniority is incomparable. Could it be that the lives of the world cannot compare to the position of dominating the misty illusory manor in his eyes? That elder said in anguish. This bastard is inhuman. Precisely because he is an expert of his generation, an invincible expert. So all the lives of the world is merely ants in his eyes. And why would he bother about whether a bunch of ants lives or dies? The safety of the continent is merely a fart in Zhang Kuang's eyes. Or perhaps, not even a fart. Gu Han growled furiously. Jun Moxie finally understood the cause and effect of this matter, but he couldn't help but sigh. For the sake of these 9 illusory quicksand, Jun Xie subjected and left the entire continent at the mercy of the strange races. He was worse than a beast. This sort of action. How different was it from a traitor that sold his own country out? Then, Jun Moxie remembered a question. You said that Jun Xie brought away the 9 illusory quicksand. But we were all watching during that battle just now. Jun Xie was practically Niked and even fell into the volcano. But from start to end, we did not see that 9 illusory quicksand. Ah. The 9 illusory quicksand that is sufficient to last for 1,000,000 years shouldn't be a small amount, right? Gu Han laughed bitterly. This is the bizarre thing about the 9 illusory quicksand. Before it is retrieved, the 9 illusory quicksand is just individual grains of transparent sand. One single grain is several caddies heavy. But once it is taken, it will have no mass and is stored in the soul. If this person does not die, then aside from himself, there is no second person who can take the 9 illusory quicksand out. I see. Jun Moxie nodded his head. From the looks of it, Jun Xie is not dead yet. The 9 illusory quicksand is still in his hands. This matter might be a little troublesome. Jun Xie is not dead? Though everyone had witnessed Jun Xie leaping out from the volcano, but they were all hoping that it would not be that luck. He was already charred by the lava to that state, so how could he still survive? This was also human nature to think positively first. And Jun Xie was still alive. The severity of the matter was so grave that it had gone beyond all their expectations. His body has died, but his soul remains. Jun Moxie nodded. Then isn't that more troublesome? Everyone were experts. They naturally knew the problem with this. Jun Xie went from having a form to formless. If he grew stronger when they were not paying attention, there will be great bloodshed. Instantly, everyone's hearts turned heavy. Let's not talk about this matter first. The priority right now is still the battle with the strange races. I want to know how much force the 3 holy lands still have. Jun Moxie rubbed his temples and asked. Even his heart was thumping when he asked this question, and there was a little bit of doubt. Looking at the situation, if the 3 holy lands could come up with 6,000 people, Jun Moxie would be thanked the heavens already. Those that are alive are not more than 3,000. Guhan closed his eyes as tears flowed out, raising his head to face the sky. But there are definitely no more than 1,000 who can join the battle. The establishment of 10,000 years. The beautiful landscape of the Xian continent will be ruined in our hands. This old man is guilty. What? The feck. Young Master Jun cursed out from shock. He had already thought of the worst possible situation, but he did not imagine that it would be this dire. A battle force that is less than 1,000 man, what can it do? Facing the entire clan of strange races, this little amount of men didn't even have the right to be cannon fodder. This was definitely not like the war for seizing the heavens in the past. It was merely a battle of prowess last time. But this time, they're trying to stop an invasion. Guhan's eyes remained shut as he said solemnly. Manor Lord Jun. This time, the lives of the world are relying on the evil Monarch Manor and Tianfa Forest. Jun Moxie instantly felt his head throbbing. He asked weakly, then, according to your estimation, how many people does the strange races have? The climate is extremely harsh on the Pillar of Heaven's mountains. It is definitely not a place for normal people to live. The living conditions are extremely harsh. There shouldn't be many of the strange races. Guhan said. Jun Moxie let out a soft sigh of relief. Then, how many will there be? Good that there is not many of them. If they come swarming over like locusts, with my few 10,000s of men, it is useless. It will not go beyond 1,000,000, at most. Guhan lowered his head, not bearing to look at Jun Moxie's expression. Jun Moxie was flabbergasted. His mouth turned into an O shape. After a long while, he only uttered a single word. Feck. He suddenly jumped up in anger, stomping and cursing. Feck. Isn't this fraud? I'm really fecked. If 1,000,000 is not considered many, then what is considered many? Not many. If it's not many, why don't your 3 holy lands go and fight them back? The feck. Telling this daddy to go and fight 1,000,000 people with a few thousand men? Did you really think this daddy is a god? Jun Moxie was really agitated right now. Did you all take this daddy as a fool? Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1152. Heaven Reversal Pill. Everyone was speechless. Looking left and right, there were merely 10 people. This was the strongest force of the world, the main fighting power against the strange races. Just such this small handful. Jun Moxie was going crazy. He tugged at his hair. Come, dear big bosses. You guys teach me. I beg you to teach me. How do we fight this war? With what? The feck. Even if we can kill one with a single breath, we will all die from exhaustion even if we use up all our breaths. Millions. My fecking god. Millions. This daddy is too awesome. Too bloody awesome. Fighting millions with just one person alone. Oh my god. This daddy is literally a hero. An idol. The feck. How could I not realize I was this great, this powerful, this awesome? Guhan and the rest kept silent. The truth of the matter was such. So what could they do about it? Millions. Jun Moxie started to laugh. Bitterly. When I heard you guys talk about the war for seizing the heavens previously, I was always under the impression that both sides would send out a group of representatives. Have a duel of swords at donghua. And victory or loss would decide everything. Everyone separates and goes back home and that's fecking it. But I thought that a battle like this, both parties will send out some representatives for a fight. It would be no more than 20 or 30 of them. Now then I learn that I suddenly have to face with millions. Jun Moxie said. At a loss. This is way fecking more from what I expected. Guhan also began to chuckle bitterly. Who told you that both parties only send dozens of people out to battle? The reason why the war for seizing the heavens is called the war for seizing the heavens is because of its large scale. And the brutality of the battle is unimaginable. The number of people partaking in the battle from both sides are, at minimum, in thousands. And they are all top experts. And for the sake of prevention, they nurture their talents that will take over, bringing all their disciples that have the greatest potential. Let them witness the war for seizing the heavens. So, every war for seizing the heavens, there are 10,000 people present altogether. How can it be a small battle between 20 to 30 people? Jun Moxie looked at the sky gloomily, completely at a loss for words. Besides, what is the duel of swords at donghua? Guhan asked curiously, stroking his beard. The duel of sword at donghua is when a few experts gather to vie for the title of the number one sword in the world. Donghua is a very beautiful place. And that's all. Jun Moxie let out a depressed sigh. Let's not talk about the duel of sword at donghua. Let's talk about the war for seizing the heavens. Mei Shuayan let out a sigh and said apathetically. What's there to talk about? We just battle to the best of our abilities. With a clear conscience. And that's good enough. A look of shame and guilt appeared on the faces of those from the Heaven Saint Palace. They knew about what the three Holy Lands did to Tianfa Forest. But they had never intervened to stop it. This was undoubtedly connivance, which led to the three Holy Lands becoming more and more audacious and outrageous. Yet right now, the three Holy Lands had already been crippled. The strange races were invading, but they still had to rely on Tianfa Forest to deal with this crisis. What sort of feeling was this? Guhan and the rest did not know. But they all felt embarrassed, guilty, and ashamed to show their face. All these old seniors turned red in the face, but they couldn't find the words to say. Just battle to the best of our abilities, with a clear conscience. That's good enough, these was Mei Shuai exact words. But how could they say that they had a clear conscience? After brooding over it, Gu Han let out a long sigh and said, Venerable Mei, the three holy lands have let you down. After saying that, he couldn't help but feel his heart wrench. How could it be merely letting her down? If the three holy lands had not dealt with Mei Shuai and Tian Fa Forest, how could they offend Jun Moxie? Under their pushing, they finally provoked Jun Moxie, this super malefic. Practically half of the three holy lands were ruined in this lad's hands. And there was one more thing that Gu Han was unaware of. If they did not deal with Mei Shuai and did not offend Jun Moxie, Jun Moxie may not necessarily have advanced this quickly. It could be said that Jun Moxie's current advancement was induced by tremendous pressure from the three holy lands. Each time the three holy lands attacked, Jun Moxie advanced by a huge leap in his cultivation. If Jun Moxie did not advance this rapidly, then he naturally would not set his sights on the exquisite lotus and the seven-colored holy fruit. Then he wouldn't enter the misty illusory manor. As long as Jun Moxie did not enter the misty illusory manor, the Zhan family's schemes would not have been destroyed, and they would have very likely successfully altered the fortune of the Miao family and monopolized the entire misty illusory manor. Then Zhan Luanhui wouldn't have set his sights on the 9 illusory quicksand. And the three holy lands will not be destroyed. When looking from this angle, the conclusion was, because the three holy lands dealt with Mei Shuai, the three holy lands was destroyed. This may sound absurd, but the truth of the matter was such. There's no need to bring up things that are in the past. Mei Shuai gave an indifferent smile. But after this battle, if we all perish, then everything will be over. But if we survive, then the three holy lands must give me an explanation. Of course. Gu Han said seriously. Then he sighed. After this battle, if we are defeated but survive, I do not have the face to continue existing in this world. Our chances of victory in this battle. He chuckled bitterly and shook his head. I'm afraid that the blackened name of a sinner. I'm definitely going to carry it. Not necessarily. Mei Shuai said calmly. We may not necessarily lose the battle this time. Ah. Why does Venerable Mei say this? Gu Han thought Mei Shuai had some good method. His couldn't help but brightened up. A hopeful look graced his face. Everyone else also had a fervent look in their eyes as they looked at Mei Shuai. They waited patiently for her to speak, hoping that she would say something that would reverse the entire situation. Because this time, Moxie is partaking in the battle. Mei Shuai said with great pride. At the same time, she looked at Jun Moxie with complete trust and bliss in her eyes. In this world, if there was one person who was most confident in Jun Moxie, then that person was definitely Mei Shuai. Mei Shuai was the only person who knew Jun Moxie's secret. Although Snake Queen Qian Sun had also been in the Hongjun Pagoda, but she only knows that there was this mysterious space. That's all. But Mei Shuai was someone who cultivated the art of unlocking heaven's fortune. She knew how miraculous this set of skills was. Even the most powerful and miraculous powers could not compare to the art of unlocking heaven's fortune. Mei Shuai's cultivation had yet to reach the 3rd level, but she already had strength that was several tenfolds of her previous strength. And she had heard Jun Moxie share that there were 9 levels to the art of unlocking heaven's fortune in total. Every level would multiply the previous level's strength by several tenfolds. Mei Shuai couldn't imagine what it would be like if she truly reached the 9th level. Mei Shuai had witnessed how Jun Moxie refined pills in batches to create batches of experts. like he was performing magic. Right now, he had even more miraculous pills on his hands. Especially the heaven reversal pill, which was even more heaven-defying. It allowed all injuries to recover in an instant. It didn't take into account the user's cultivation. No matter what sort of injuries were sustained, as long as they used the heaven reversal pill, then they would be able to make a complete recovery. Currently, those who had departed from Tianfa and Evil Monarch Manor all had one in their hands. It could be imagined that if two people with the same level of cultivation fight till the death, and at the deciding moment when they both sustained severe injuries, one person brought out the heaven reversal pill and used it, and recovered back to full strength, how would it end? So Mei Shuayan thought that although the had has the advantage in numbers, not all of them were experts. Whereas on their side, every single one of them were elite forces. And everyone had the equivalent of 2 lives. That's a terrible situation. Ah. This battle may not necessarily be that pessimistic. At most, it'll just drag on for a longer period. That's all. With Jun Moxie around, victory will belong to the continent sooner or later. This was what Mei Shuayan thought. She firmly believed in this. Jun Moxie. He will be able to turn the entire outcome of the battle alone? Gu Han turned around to look at Jun Moxie in disappointment, and let out a sigh. Jun Moxie smiled and said, "We're pressed for time, so let's cut the idle chatting." Then 2 small bottles appeared in his hands with a turn of his wrists. This is the heaven reversal pill I have refined. No matter how severe the injury, it will be completely healed once you use it. I see that some of you have sustained injuries. Just use one first. He paused for a while. There is a total of 100 heaven reversal pill in these 2 jade bottles. The rest, you can all keep one on you. In case of emergencies, a single pill can completely heal all injuries and recover back to full strength. Gu Han took the bottle and looked at it skeptically. A look of obvious distrust on his face. Even if he were beaten to death, he wouldn't believe that there was such a miraculous thing in the world. Whether it is good or not, you'll know when you use it. Jun Moxie said eccentricity, rolling his eyes. This old scoundrel dares to suspect what this young master made. Do you know how much energy I put for the sake of these heaven reversal pill? If not for the war for seizing the heavens, how could you have the chance to try this young master's divine medicine? Gu Han raised his brows and opened the bottle incredulously. He instantly noticed a pleasant fragrance wafting out. He carefully poured out a pill and put it in his mouth, intending to chew it twice before swallowing it. But he realized that this pill instantly dissolved in the mouth, turning into a warm flow that gushed and filled his body. An extremely refreshing feeling filled every single body part. He was on the verge of letting out a moan. All the injured spots had a numbing sensation. Then the Xian Qi in his meridians began to flow like a river. When this intoxicating sensation disappeared, Gu Han circulated his qi, and to his joy, all his injuries had healed completely. In the battle with Zhan Luanhui, Gu Han's 5 organs had been damaged. And because he entered the 9 illusory quicksand nirvana formation, his powers had not recovered. But just this one single tiny pill had managed to instantly make all his injuries vanish. And his strength had recovered too when he was in peak form. With Gu Han's composure, his hand that was holding onto the 2 small bottles began to tremble suddenly, to the point he could barely keep a grip on the bottles. A look of agitated joy filled his face. He raised his head and looked at Jun Moxie, losing his manners as he took a huge step forward. His entire body trembled as he asked, "Jun Moxie, a medicine like this, how much do you have?" Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1153. Jun Moxie's warning. How much do I have? A medicine like this. How much of it do you think this monarch should have? Jun Moxie shot a glare and chuckled icily. Gu Han was instantly tongue-tied. He had completely belittled this tiny medicine, but he had never expected this one single pill to have such tremendous effects. Manor Lord Jun, please pardon this old man's shamelessness. To dare ask how much of this medicine Manor Lord Jun still has in your hands. I was blind and foolish to be unable to tell how precious this pill was. This sort of miraculous pill, if there is a sufficient supply of it prepared, it may really be able to bring us through this treacherous crisis. Gu Han said awkwardly. He knew that this heaven reversal pill was a medicine that is created uniquely by Jun Moxie. It would obviously be extremely precious. But this miraculous pill would practically determine the outcome of the impending crisis ahead. He knew that he was taking liberties by saying this, but he still toughened his skin and said it. Perhaps it's just as Mei Shuiyan said earlier. Although things were looking bleak, but because of Jun Moxie's participation, it was possible. It was only now that Gu Han began to believe it a little. The battle is round the corner, so I will not hide things from you. I have this type of medicine, and not in small amounts. Jun Moxie said. Gu Han was elated when he heard this. He was about to open his mouth again when he heard Jun Moxie continue speaking. However, the quantity of this heaven reversal pill is my problem, so I shan't trouble you to worry about it for me. After all, there are too few of those who are worth using it. At least, you all are unworthy of using even more heaven reversal pill. It is already not bad for you to obtain this 100 pills. Gu Han instantly came to a realization. He was an old man who had lived for thousands of years. How could he not know that with what the three Holy Lands had done to Jun Moxie and Mei Shuiyan, the fact that evil Monarch Manor and Tian Fa did not seize this opportunity to completely get rid of the three Holy Lands was already taking the bigger picture into consideration. What more? Being gifted this sort of divine medication. But then, the battle was right in front of them. This magical pill that was the equivalent of a second life was right before their eyes. So how could they not be moved? Right now, Heaven Saint Palace and the three Holy Lands had been weakened drastically. The more of this pill they had, that meant the bigger hope of the three Holy Lands thriving. And the larger the hopes for the treacherous situation ahead. Mulling over it, Gu Han finally croaked. Manor Lord Jun, all the matters of the past have already passed. Right now, before the great enemy, it is the crucial moment of life and death. Both our forces need to work together as one to fight against the enemy. Only then will we have a sliver of hope. I have already said it earlier, and I think that the medicine that Manor Lord Jun will be able to give can be the crux that determines where victory lies. I ask of Manor Lord Jun to not recall old grievances and gift us with more. With Gu Han's status, to be saying this at this point in time was practically begging. If it was for himself, he would definitely not be able to put down his pride and beg someone, even if he had to die 10,000 times over. But right now, he was carrying the lives of the world and the hope of the three Holy Lands' continuity. Even though it was a grieving, and he knew that the chances were slim, but he still put his pride down. After all, compared to the safety of the continent and the survival of Holy Lands, his personal dignity was something that was negligible. Jun Moxie looked at Gu Han for a while, before opening his mouth. Forget it. The people of the three Holy Lands are indeed unworthy of this pill. But you and what you had just said are worthy of it. Young Master Jun turned his wrists and took out 3 more bottles. I'll give you all another 150 heaven reversal pills. This time, it is really the limit. Jun Moxie paused for a while. Old Gu, you are also someone sensible. I dare say, a pill like this. Aside from myself, haha. I doubt you'll be able to find many in the entire world. You said so earlier. The battle ahead will be treacherous. Everyone has to cooperate sincerely. As long as your side is willing to stake your life. If you are met with danger in the war for seizing the heavens, would this monarch really just sit by and watch? Don't think that this young master's excellent medicine is so easily obtainable. If you don't put in effort after I give even the pills, then you're asking for it. Of course, when you have done sufficient enough, there will be more of this medicine. Gu Han was filled with joy from hearing this. With the current population of 3 holy lands, 150 pills was indeed not much. But Jun Moxie made himself clear. Such a heaven-defying miraculous pill. Even if it existed, how many of them can there be? Even if there was plenty, it would have to be provided to themselves. It was really pretty good that they had managed to obtain 250 heaven reversal pills. Judging from the value of this pill, the cost would have been an astronomical amount. An amount that even someone of Gu Han's status will be terrified. Not to mention with the 3 holy lands' foundations completely ruined. Even if it weren't destroyed, the relative amount would be enough to make them all bankrupt. If they tried to push for more, they'd be unreasonable. Besides, Jun Moxie had also emphasized that as long as the 3 holy lands did not play any tricks, if he saw people from the 3 holy lands injured during the battle, he would not sit by and watch. This was already enough. He had given 100 first, then another 150. A total of 250. I had just used 1. There are still 249 of it left. The battle this time, we must give it our all. And have to be prepared for death. Only this way will we have better chances of victory. If we do not have this sort of mental preparation, everything is in vain. Even the most excellent equipments are of no use. Jun Moxie looked at Gu Han solemnly and said, Old Gu, previously, we were on opposing sides. There is something that I did not intend to say, but after mulling over it, seeing how you are wholeheartedly doing things for the sake of the world, I still have to remind you on it. It is up to you if you are willing to listen. Gu Han felt an unexplainable chill. Time was of the essence here, and they were pressed for time. But Jun Moxie still insisted on reminding him at this sort of crucial timing. Then it could be imagined how important this was. Gu Han's face also turned serious. Manor Lord Jun can speak without any qualms. I am confident that I can take it. The battle this time is exceptionally dangerous. There will be accidents happening every moment. Even a Saint Venerable can perish in this battle. Jun Moxie said coldly. So, this battle will be a long, drawn-out battle of endurance. Indeed. Manor Lord Jun's words make sense. Although he did not know what Jun Moxie meant by this. Gu Han still tried to reply. Thus, one does not fear an enemy that is like a wolf, but fear comrades that are like swines. Two chilling glint appeared in Jun Moxie's eyes. Not afraid of the enemy's ruthlessness, but only the betrayal and knife in my back. Gu Han's body turned cold. He had already realized what Jun Moxie was trying to say. I believe you've understood what I'm thinking of saying, but I still will make it clear. The three holy lands and Tian Fa forest had accumulated grievances for a long time. I am very confident that of all the leaders of the holy lands, including Mo Wu Dao, as long as the outcome of the battle have yet to be made clear. There will be no one who will try to play tricks. But as to everyone else from the three holy lands, I do not hold the same belief. You understand that one small mistake will ruin everything. So, as long as one person from the three holy lands dares to try and play tricks and betray me, I will annihilate the three holy lands with no hesitation. Completely. I will no longer consider motive, reason, standpoint whatsoever. That will be the only outcome. This is just a reminder. A friendly reminder. If it does not happen, then that'll be good. But if it happens, don't blame me for not making it clear beforehand. Jun Moxie smiled. I originally didn't want to not bother and make things difficult. But after meeting you all today, I changed my mind. Gu Han gritted his teeth and nodded his head heavily. I understand. The entire Xian continent has fallen into grave danger. It needs us to work together to get past this crisis. If there is really someone that is this despicable and shameless in the three holy lands, then you don't need to take any action. There is no more reason for the three holy lands to exist. I hope you meant what you said. A cynical look flashed in Jun Moxie's eyes before they returned back to normal. This talk was not planning ahead or baseless conjecture, but because of Jun Moxie's deepest understanding of human nature as someone who had lived two lives. If the battle had yet to end, or the continent had yet to be in an advantageous situation, the three holy lands will definitely not deal with TNFA. But if the outcome of the battle had been decided and the strange races were already defeated, the three holy lands would definitely play tricks. This was not measuring the stature of an upright man by the yardstick of a base man. This was simply the deep-rooted bad habits of human nature. 10,000 years of oppressing TNFA was because of this despicable nature of human. Especially with the current situation. The three holy lands had lost almost 90% of all their foundation. They will definitely not trust that evil Monarch Manor and TNFA to not seize this excellent opportunity to eradicate the greatly weakened three holy lands and dominate Xian. Jun Moxie had also never believed that they would really wake up to their senses. And, looking at Gu Han's serious look, as if, this number one person of Heaven's Saint Palace, also did not believe it, and did not dare to believe it. Thus, right now, he had his worries. Please subscribe to this channel, so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1154. The war begins. Eagle Bear Army. Because Gu Han already deeply understood how unfathomable Jun Moxie was, rashly making an enemy of an existence like this, who was impossible to predict, was only courting a disaster. But there were too few people who understood this. Jun Moxie narrowed his eyes and straightened his back, glancing over at the erupting volcanoes in the south. He said slowly, "We should make our move now. The few of us shall split into a few teams and go and check the situation separately. Those from the three holy lands, you can make your own arrangements for the teams. As to contact between us, we shall." Then Jun Moxie began to draw a rough map of the surrounding geographical situation, and suggested a general plan as well as a way for both of them to keep in contact. Gu Han and the rest paid close attention, nodding their heads. Jun Moxie's tone was ordinary, but was full of confidence. He commanded casually and gave orders. Everything was just that natural. Unknowingly, by a stroke of fate, all the higher-ups of the three holy and one ferocious lands had already acknowledged Jun Moxie as the leader in this war. All right, we shall go with this for now. Let's move separately. Jun Moxie tossed the stone in his hand away as he stood up, the killing intent obvious in his eyes. If the strange races do not come, forget it. But if they come, in this war, we absolutely must not let a single one of them back. If they have the guts to enter the Xian continent, then they shall bear the consequences of defeat and death. Go! With this order, the experts from Heaven's Saint Palace silently bolted away towards different directions. What should we do now? Mei Shuayan asked. We should find out the whereabouts of Eagle King and Bear King first. Jun Moxie furrowed his brows. Under this sort of violent volcanic eruption, the strange races should not have come over yet. I don't know why, but I have a bad feeling. Could it be that there are still more unexpected changes? Both of them exchanged glances and flew into the air at the same time. With a whoosh, two flashes of white cut across the skies and vanished quickly. At the same time, on the other side of the Pillar of Heaven's mountains, the Eagle Bear army had met with an unprecedented, enormous crisis. Right now, the towering Pillar of Heaven's mountains had already collapsed into a pile of rubble. The ground was still shaking from this sudden disaster. Fire was spreading, smoke was choking the air. Almost 30 volcanoes erupted at the same time with tremendous might, as if it truly to rip the skies apart. Even the toughest stones and metal would not be able to get past this deadly scene unscathed. But there were no absolutes in the world. There would always be accidents. The volcanic eruption was undoubtedly disastrous and covered a vast area. But the Pillar of Heaven's mountains stretches for 10,000 li. There must be a portion that the volcano eruption was unable to cover. And although the temperature of these places had been brought up to a shocking degree due to the disaster, a temperature high enough to melt metal, but, to experts that had cultivations of Saint Emperors and above, it was still manageable. And the bigger issue was that the strange races had always been segregated from the other sides of the Xian continent by the Pillar of Heaven's mountains. They were filled with urgency and the thirst to dominate this continent. The moment this natural stronghold was gone, they immediately forced their way through from the spots they could come out from. And the Eagle Bear Kings had rushed all the way to Pillar of Heaven's mountains. Seeing this catastrophic sight, they were appalled. But at the same time, they understood that the situation was very dire. They did not dare to make any delays. The eagles carefully navigated through erupting volcanoes, dodging the threat from nature. The bears carefully scoured the place for sight of the enemy. They instantly discovered the strange races that were surging in large numbers. With no hesitation, both kings gave the order to intercept them. In the skies and on the ground, both teams discovered each other at the same time. Like a bolt of thunder coming into contact with the fire on the ground. Or like an adulterous couple, both parties hitting it off, displaying their most flirtatious behavior at the same time. Using their greatest passion to unravel the most intense battle in their lives. The moment the battle began, both Bear King and Eagle King beached incessantly. The battle against the strange races this time was unexpectedly tough. Jun Moxie had not truly been to the southern territory of the Pillar of Heaven's mountains. His understanding of the strange races had already been from hearsay, so he was not clear of how tough the living conditions were on the side of the strange races. The south of the Pillar of Heaven's mountains only has 2 seasons in an entire year: summer and winter. When it was winter, the weather was freezing harsh. The temperature was usually at -45 degrees. At its lowest temperatures, it could go down to -80 degrees. And when the temperatures were higher in the summer, it was the same as being engulfed in flames. The strange races that had managed to survive under such harsh climate all had extremely strong bodies. And every single one of the strange races had to cultivate The reason was simple. When living in such a harsh living environment, not cultivating meant they were forsaking the chance to survive. And on the other hand, cultivating with the mentality for survival, every single one of them was even more extreme and strong. And one more thing. The strange races were all conjoined hermaphrodites, which means every one of them had two sets of meridians in their bodies, which provided yin and yang to complement each other. In this way, they already had the advantage in physique. The physique that caused those from the Xian continent to look down upon had a great benefit. Cultivating in this mutually complementing manner, they advanced a lot faster than those from the Xian continent. And most importantly, this thing, they could do double cultivation anytime, anywhere. This was undoubtedly a great advantage. Like a huge tidal wave, the strange races that came surging over were merely the few tribes that were near the Pillar of Heaven's mountains. The sudden collapse of the Pillar of Heaven's mountains, that led to the eruption of volcanoes, had dealt a significant damage to the Xian continent, but it also greatly harmed the strange races. The eruption of the volcano had killed and injured many of the strange races. But there were still some that managed to get away, especially those that were stronger. This level of natural disaster was still not enough to be a threat to those who were truly powerful. And those tribes that were further away from the Pillar of Heaven's mountains did not suffer much losses, only merely being spooked. And in their shock, there was also a thick sense of joy. With the sudden collapse of the Pillar of Heaven's mountains, the stream of air that had been blocked since ancient times went surging into the south of the Pillar of Heaven's mountains. This had let these strange races felt an indescribable, refreshing sensation. This sensation motivated the strange races to charge through the Pillar of Heaven's mountains and invade the Xian continent. This was the greatest dream of generations of strange races. The other side of the Pillar of Heaven's mountains had an abundance of water, plants, fertile soil, enchanting sceneries. What a beautiful place it was. In the Xian continent, the place that was most unsuitable for living, the harshest place, was the equivalent to heaven to the strange races. So when they saw the Pillar of Heaven's mountains collapse, the strange races from these few tribes gathered into teams and went charging in from this opening, with not the smallest bit of hesitation, unafraid of death. The volcano continued to erupt and there were countless obstacles, but none of it could hinder the strange race's path to a better future. And there were plenty of such openings that were not obstructed by the volcanoes along the Pillar of Heaven's mountains that stretched across a great span. There were a bunch of scoundrels that popped out of them, each of them bearing 2 heads and 2 bodies, in great numbers and in a frenzy. If there was someone watching from the air, they would realize that it looked as if Pandora's box had suddenly been opened, and the entire world was covered in monsters. And this was not the most scary part, because the most terrifying part was that these monsters were still popping out consecutively and endlessly. Within these few tribes, the strongest was the hell-enduring ghosts of Shengchuan Paku. Amongst all the strange races in the nearby territory, Shengchuan Paku's strength was comparable to a demonic lord figure. He had plenty of experts under him, 10,000s of 9th-level endurers, and the hell-enduring ghosts of the lowest and middle tiers amounted to about 80. Shengchuan Paku, with his lieutenant, Sichuan Paku, were both madmen for war. Seeing the sudden collapse of the Pillar of Heaven's mountains, both of them made the same decision at the same time. This was a heaven-bestowed opportunity. It is the best opportunity for our race to break past the Pillar of Heaven's mountains and take over the Xian continent. Thus, they did not care about the volcanoes or toxic fumes or the high temperatures, instantly gathering all their subordinates and charging right into Xian continent. They were thinking, With this sort of treacherous weather, even if they were practically unable to endure it, then what more? Those Xian citizens who had been living in excellent condition, this entire journey would be unobstructed. As long as they were able to charge into the area where humans resided, everything would be easy. But they had never expected that the moment they just charged through the pillar of heaven's mountains, a huge sea of enemies greeted them. The Xian beasts of Tian Fa. And there was a considerable number of them. And any one of them was an expert with significant cultivation. If not for the huge disparity in the numbers, they would be easily slaughtered. Under Shangchuan Paku's command, they all began to attack with no hesitation of death. As long as they entered this piece of land, then, even if they had to die, they must die on this piece of land. They absolutely must not retreat back to that tortuous south of the Pillar of Heaven's mountains. That terrifying, nightmarish hometown. Eagle King whistled. Bear King roared. And they both gave the order to attack. 6,000 of them landed at the same time, and all the members of the Eagle clan transformed into human form and backed off. At the same time, the fighters from the Bear clan took a huge step forward. The warriors from the Bear clan formed an impregnable line of defense for their comrades, providing some time for the Eagles to get some rest and regain their energy. After all, they had flown a great distance all at one go. Practically all the Eagle fighters were already completely exhausted. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1155. Hell-enduring ghosts. Big Bear landed on the ground, standing right in front of the troops. His burly body was like a solid, steady iron tower. The ground rumbled when he stepped on it. He looked at the strange races that were yelling and charging from ahead with cold eyes and suddenly broke out in loud laughter. Bastard! What are you laughing about? Shangchuan Paku yelled, pointing a finger angrily. At the same time, his twin sister that was attached to him also screeched. Fool! What are you laughing about? Ha ha ha! Big Bear clutched his stomach and smacked his thigh as he laughed. I had heard that the strange races were grotesquely deformed. I had thought the seniors were exaggerating and lying. But today, I really learnt that there are truly things that make one feel repulsed at first look like yourselves. The world is truly big and filled with all sorts of wonders. I'm impressed. The seniors weren't lying. Ah! I have broadened my horizons today. Both the heads on Shangchuan Paku shouted furiously. Insolent! Wretch! In both deep and shrill voice. Both already were not very pleasant to listen to, and when mixed together, it made one feel an indescribable sense of discomfort. Big Bear rolled his eyes and spat on the ground, looking at them with a condescending look. To think that you guys have the cheek to come out when you look like that. You truly have no shame. We Tian Fa Forest have always thought Xian beasts were considered ugly compared to humans. But who knew that when standing before you guys, I suddenly realized how good-looking we are. This sense of superiority is a first for me. So thank you very much. You bunch of monsters. Why have you not gone looking for a tree to hang yourselves on? What are you still waiting for? I have spoken wrongly. How can a tree be enough? You'll need at least 2 trees. This Big Bear was truly sharp-tongued. A second ago he was still being grateful and thanking them. The next, he was encouraging them to go commit suicide. Shangchuan Paku let out a loud, long whistle and hollered. He is trying to stall for them, till those hairy beasts catch their breath. Everyone, charge! Chop them into minced meat. This person was truly meticulous in his thinking. to be able to see through Big Bear's intentions after 2 lines only. Big Bear shouted angrily. Hey! Just you bunch of grotesque she-males and hideous creatures are worthy of this king to stall for time? This king, Big Bear, is the Bear King of Tien Fa. Announce your name, monster. This king does not kill those without a name. This seat is Shangchuanpa Ku. Shangchuanpa Ku cackled sinisterly. Tien Fa's Bear King? Not bad. Not bad. To have a Bear King be an offering to this seat's sword in the first battle encounters in entering the continent. This trip was not made in vain. I've heard that the Xian core of the Xian beasts of Tien Fa are excellent nourishment. It's clear that the Xian core of a beast king will be even more superior. To have this opportunity the moment this seat enters the Xian continent. How fortunate. Ha ha ha. Why is Big Brother wasting your breath on this non-human? We should just end him. Why use a cleaver to kill a chicken? I ask for permission to deal with this Bear King to obtain the Xian core of the Beast King for Big Brother. Sichuan Pagua took a big step forward and looked at Big Bear icily. Big Bear, with your status, you're still not worthy of making my big brother dirty his hands. This seat Sichuan Pagua comes forth to send you on your way. Big Bear blinked his eyes. Stunned. Then, he suddenly guffawed loudly, gasping for air. Between gasped, he said. N? Wearing torn pants on top. Wearing a torn gown below. When you guys really have a knack for naming. If it wasn't for this king's nimble wit, I would have been fooled by you guys. This name is too, TSK, brilliant. This king is very curious. The top and bottom are worn on the wrong sides. How do you wear it then? I've really met with something rare today. Eagle King, who was in the midst of resting, couldn't help but roll his eyes, resisting the urge to jump up and give this Big Bear a kick and send him flying. You dare to praise yourself as nimble-witted? You lagged for a moment with these 2 names. If it were me, I would have already burst out laughing a long time ago. Bestard. Both of Sichuan Pagua's heads roared. He rose to the air, hacking down with his blade that suddenly appeared. In the midst of his loud laughter, Big Bear took a step forward, his sword unsheathed in his right hand. It was the divine weapon that Jun Moxie had given him back then. He swung it up with no hesitation. A sinister grin appeared on the face on Sichuan Pagua that was facing Big Bear. The blade in his hand was smithied from unique metal from the southern side of the Pillar of Heaven's mountains. It was a whole lot stronger than regular weapons. Seeing how Big Bear swung his sword to meet with his, he couldn't help but feel a sense of joy. He was practically sure that he would be able to slice the enemy into 2, along with his sword. He had heard that the core of the Xian beasts of Tien Fa had countless miraculous effects. If he really managed to obtain it, he would swallow it immediately. That Shangchuanpa Ku was merely a little stronger than himself, but he kept ordering him around. As long as his strength increased exponentially, he would turn into the master. With this thought, he put more energy into it. You courted death on your own. Don't blame me for this. I'll borrow your Xian core to achieve my glorious path. Sichuan Pagua's imagination was undoubtedly beautiful, but the reality was as different as it could be. There was a loud clang and sparks flew about. Big Bear remained steady, not budging the slightest, whereas Sichuan Pagua did a somersault in the air and was sent flying back to his original spot from the impact. Both of them looked at their weapons at the same time. Big Bear's eyes wondered. His face was reflected clearly on the surface of the sword. There was not the slightest damage on it. He couldn't help but feel relieved and elated. This sword brother-in-law gave is truly a divine peerless weapon. Ah. Sichuan Pagua let out an anguished roar. Failing to chop through Bear King's sword in a single strike was already beyond his expectations. When he checked his own sword, to his horror, on the blade that he treasured as much as his own life, at the spot where the two weapons had crossed, a small chip the size of a rice grain had appeared. His blade was most useful for chopping, and it was considered a divine weapon as well. Intentionally maximizing the use of his sword and taking a gamble to use it against the opponent's sword that was not suitable for dealing with such a forceful attack. The one that was damaged was his own treasured blade. This sort of reality, this sort of outcome, was unacceptable for Sichuan Pagua. He really did not dare to believe and could not believe that on this Xian continent, there was someone's weapon that could be better than his own. This was the enduring ghost blade. Fresh blood began to slowly trickle out from the corner of Sichuan Pagua's lips. Although he was considered an excellent expert amongst the strange races and had already attained the realm of a Saint Emperor, compared to Big Bear's natural strength and Saint Emperor cultivation, the difference was more than one-fold. And in this exchange, although it was only one blow, the impact had already caused injuries to his internal organs. Fresh blood trickled onto the ground, but was instantly vaporized due to the high temperatures with a sizzle, filling the air with the smell of blood. Ha 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 ha. Big Bear's ear-piercing laughter rang out. Two-headed bastard. You sure have a bit of strength in you. Come, fight with this old master again. How can that small round just now be counted? Look at how arrogant you were earlier. Still thinking of taking my core. Fecking hell. If I don't show you a little of my prowess, you'll really think you're capable just because you have two heads. Sichuan Pagua raised his head and looked at Big Bear. He suddenly let out a crazed roar and pounced forward. Big Bear cackled and took a huge step forward to take him on, but he then stopped in his tracks. Because right before their weapons clashed, Sichuan Pagua's figure that was flying over suddenly turned into a puff of smoke, blinding everyone's vision. Then, Sichuan Pagua's figure disappeared mysteriously amidst the smoke. Old Bear, be careful. This is the legendary stealth technique of the strange races. Be careful? Haha. Will being careful be of any use? Await your death, you wretched stupid bear. Sichuan Pagu cackled. Big Bear scoffed, instantly recalling Jun Moxie's words. When fighting the strange races, the first thing you have to do is keep a calm mind. They have their stealth techniques, and there are truly too few of us that are able to see past it. So the moment the strange races use their stealth mode, then do not ever trust your eyes. At the same time the strange races conceal themselves, close your eyes and let your heart maintain in a crystal clear state. Use your heart to feel everything around you. Use your ear to catch any smallest sound. Channel all your spirit to fight. Use your heart to feel. Use your ears to catch. Use your spirit to fight. Big Bear muttered under his breath. Then, as if he understood something in that moment, he quickly closed his big eyes. He slowly lowered the sword in hand, relaxing his entire body. The loud rumbling sounds continued to rumble. The ground below was still shaking, but Big Bear could no longer feel all these. All his senses were used to capture the impending fatal threat. The left. The sudden threat appeared. A small, noticeable sound of the wind rang out. But Big Bear remained motionless. At a moment of life and death, he displayed his extreme prowess as a king of his own generation. He was usually careless, but he could be sharp at times. Suddenly, on the empty left side, a flash of chilling blade light appeared from thin air. An extremely vicious blade went chopping towards Big Bear's neck. The moment the flash of blade appeared, It was less than 30 centimeters away from Big Bear's neck. Big Bear let out a cold scoff. Holding his sword in his hand, he instantly brought it up. A loud clang rang out. The fatal blade was sent flying away. Then, his sword went piercing behind that blade light. A shocked, "Huh?" rang out from the void, and the blade light completely vanished. Big Bear's counterattack also missed. The surroundings were filled with the violent sound of wind. Sichuan Pagua was moving about at high speed, making use of all the possible methods to create an extremely chaotic and noisy environment, intentionally disturbing Big Bear's untainted senses. And that chilling blade also came hacking from all directions, at random parts, endlessly and unpredictably, attacking away at Big Bear. Big Bear was stronger than Sichuan Pagua in terms of cultivation, but under the enemy's strange attacks, he had no means of fighting back, and had fallen into a state of passivity. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1156. The Stealth Kill Technique. Bear King's Battle. And this sort of method was the most victorious method the strange races had in the past war for seizing the heavens. They often managed to win against enemies who were stronger than them with this stealth technique. And this skill was termed as the stealth technique in the Xian continent. But amongst the strange races, it was known as stealth kill technique. The Enduring Ghost Stealth Kill Technique, Enduring Earth Stealth Kill Technique, Enduring Heaven Stealth Kill Technique. A look of thick worry appeared in Eagle King's eyes. His expression was extremely heavy as he watched the battle. Bear King's strength and Xian's skills were indeed a lot more higher than that Sichuan Pagua. They were on completely different levels in terms of their cultivation alone. If they were really fighting head-on, Eagle King was absolutely sure that Bear King would be able to turn this disgusting conjoined human into minced meat within a couple of breaths. But the moment the opponent used this sort of strange stealth techniques, no matter how high Bear King's cultivation was, it instantly had no room to be used. There was no way to locate the enemy, and he had become the enemy's target. How could one fight a war like this? The best defense was to attack. The strange races that were completely attacking did not need to worry about being seen through. Although Bear King had followed Jun Moxie's pointers and temporarily defended against the opponent's attacks, but there were bound to be losses if one remained on the defense for too long. It meant that it caused him to not be able to win. At this instant, Eagle King suddenly understood why there were always so many casualties on the Xian side in the past wars for seizing the heavens. Because the only opportunity to strike the enemy was at the moment the opponent had managed to strike a successful attack. At the moment their weapon was stuck in their flesh. And it was only that in that instant that they could truly capture the enemy's location and kill them with a single strike. But when that time comes, they would have already gone to the verge of life and death first. They have to die before they were able to injure the enemy. Thus, the best outcome was perishing together. The other option was to self-destruct at the moment the opponent launched their attack. If they could not see past the stealth technique, these were the only two methods to defeat the enemy. The methods were different, but the outcome was the same. Whether they managed to bring the enemy down or not, they would still have to pay with their lives. All the numerous Xian cultivators of the Xian continent had gone through days like this for 10,000s of years, practicing for their entire life, only to die a glorious death in battle like this. How sorrowful was this? How dismal! But there was no other way about this. No wonder Heaven's Saint Palace held that all-seeing eye of Qiao Ying in such high regard. Because only Qiao Ying could see through the strange race's stealth techniques. Qiao Ying alone was the key that determined victory. Right now, at this moment, it was him and Bear King's turn to be in this predicament. Behind them were the 10 billion of lives of the Xian continent. Right now, there were only 6,000 comrades that the two of them were leading. How do they fight this battle? With Old Bear's bad temper, would he finally be unable to bear the fact that he was stuck on the defense and choose to perish with the enemy? Eagle King secretly began to worry and hurried the speed of his recovery. The current battle had already become extremely heated. The strange flash of blade light appeared in the surrounding air continuously, gathering to form a huge net, capturing Big Bear in it. Big Bear remained in this giant net formed by the blade light with his eyes closed. He could only defend passively. He seemed unusually calm, with not the slightest bit of impatience, constantly maintaining the calmest, purest state of mind. No matter how bizarre the enemy is attacking, I will stand like a mountain, motionless like a mountain, as great as a mountain. The moment their weapons meet, he instantly launched an incisive counterattack. In his countless counterattacks, to his dismay, he realized that the body and the blade were separated in this sort of stealth technique used by the strange races. The blade was coming from this side, but their bodies were somewhere else and was differently not in the same line as the blade. And their positions were constantly changing, with no pattern to speak of. Trying to find the opponent's real whereabouts under this sort of attack was completely relying on luck. This sort of fighting undoubtedly made Big Bear feel extremely frustrated. Defending steadily was one matter, but being frustrated was another. When one could no longer endure it, what would happen? There was a flash of blood. Just as Eagle King predicted, there was bound to be loss if one remained on the defense for too long. Sichuan Pagua's blade finally managed to break Bear King's defenses and slice Big Bear's left shoulder. It was also at this moment, Big Bear let out a roar, used his muscles to grip onto the tip of the blade and swung his sword at the thin air in 3 different places. Then, there was a sudden groan from the emptiness and a blood arrow shot out. Big Bear quickly launched attacks in the direction where the blood shot out. But it was already empty. But the dazzling blade light in the air also vanished. After being cornered and beaten up for a long time, Bear King finally could not bear it and followed in the steps of the seniors before him. Using the method of injuring himself to injure the enemy, to obtain an opportunity. If not because there were 3,000 brothers from the Eagle clan behind him that needed him to hold the fort until they were done recovering, Bear King would definitely not use this sort of method, but chose to perish with the enemy. A Bear King of his generation, how could he ever been this aggrieved before? With the 2 spurts of blood, the atmosphere in the place began to tense up. Vaguely, on the brink of a full explosion. In the south of the Pillar of Heaven's mountains, behind the strange races, the numbers were still increasing. There were countless of strange races that had found this opening. Like flies that had discovered honey, they swarmed in unendingly. It was obvious that the situation was getting worse. They still needed some more time before everyone from the Eagle clan could fully regain their strength. But the numbers on the opposing side had already gone beyond 20,000. Big Bear panted heavily, both his eyes gradually turning red. The blade flashed again, and Sichuan Pagua's blade came attacking like a bolt of lightning. Big Bear let out a crazed roar, suddenly spinning his body, and a wave of swords went piercing out, in every single direction. Attacking in every single possible direction. This was undoubtedly a way to see through the stealth method, but the moment this method it was used, aside from using a large amount of energy, it also left one vulnerable to the enemy. But there was a cry of surprise. Bear King could distinctly detect that bone-penetrating sense of danger instantly moving away. From the side, Shangchuan Paku finally couldn't take it and yelled furiously. Sichuan. What are you scoundrel doing? He is just a stupid bear. Yet you allowed him to stall for such a long time. Sichuan Pagua, who was concealing himself, almost wanted to curse. Just a stupid bear? Feck. This fellow is a solid bear king. And a 4th level Saint Emperor. I'm a 3rd level Saint Emperor at most. It is already commendable for me to be able to force him into a disadvantageous position for such a long time. If I really take the risk to kill this bear king, then I'll definitely be risking my life too. This is something that I am absolutely sure of. There's no doubt about this. If you aren't happy, then come and do it yourself. Ah! The feck are you hollering for? I know that you're anxious. Did you think that I'm not anxious too? After Shangchuan Paku yelled angrily, he turned around to look at the rest of the strange races that were streaming in endlessly. The one who was leading them was the Deku family that was the most competitive with them. Looks like this bunch of scoundrels also wants the credit of being first. Shangchuan Paku suddenly gritted his teeth and yelled. The first battle of seizing Xian continent is a special glory that belongs to my tribe. I, Shangchuan, is going to take this glory. I will absolutely not allow anyone to snatch it from me. All the warriors of the Shangchuan tribe. Charge! Shred this bunch of black bears into smithereens. Open the path for our race to invade the continent. Less than 200? The 2-headed men beside him all suck in a cold breath of air. Is the bear army of TNFA really that terrifying? Fabric. These are all 9th level endurers. And there are more than 8,000 of them. There are only 3,000 men on the opposite camp. With this person, don't tell me that we're no match. Not only are they no match, they'll be defeated terribly. I even believe that the enemy will not suffer many losses. Order all our— A cruel glint appeared in Deku Bushang's eyes. If you don't believe— Are we not going to join forces with the Shangchuan family and break past the Xian continent's line of defense? A 2-headed man asked. Break past the line of defense? Aloud, how can there be something that easy? Deku Bushang scoffed coldly. That is an army formed by the men under Bear King of TNFA Forest over there. They can be said to be the strongest fighters of TNFA Forest. They're good at defending. If all of our clan breaks through the Enduring Ghosts, and everyone can use the Enduring Ghosts stealth kill technique, it is naturally possible to deal with this army. But right now, there are less than 100 of us that can use the technique. The rest will only be slaughtered when they meet with the army of Bear Clan. With no means of counterattacking. Go there and court death? He looked gloatingly ahead. Let those fools from the Shangchuan family taste some suffering first. And also weaken the spirit of those black bears. It will not be too late for us to strike then. As the people of Xian often say, the fisherman reaps the benefits. Lord is wise. Countless people began to praise. Deku Bushang was extremely pleased. If this seats estimates correctly, I believe that there will be less than 200 of the Shangchuan members that will be able to return from this clash. Less than 200? The 2-headed men beside him all suck in a cold breath of air. Is the bear army of TNFA really that terrifying? Fabric. These are all 9th level endurers. And there are more than 8,000 of them. There are only 3,000 men on the opposite camp. With this person, don't tell me that we're no match. Not only are they no match, they'll be defeated terribly. I even believe that the enemy will not suffer many losses. Order all our— A cruel glint appeared in Deku Bushang's eyes. If you don't believe— Are we not going to join forces with the Shangchuan family and break past the Xian continent's line of defense? A 2-headed man asked. Break past the line of defense? Aloud, how can there be something that easy? Debauchee scoffed coldly. That is an army formed by the men under Bear King of Tianfa Forest over there. They can be said to be the strongest fighters of Tianfa Forest. They're good at defending. If all of our clan breaks through the Enduring Ghosts, and everyone can use the Enduring Ghosts stealth kill technique, it is naturally possible to deal with this army. But right now, there are less than 100 of us that can use the technique. The rest will only be slaughtered when they meet with the army of Bear Clan. With no means of counterattacking. Go there and court death? He looked gloatingly ahead. Let those fools from the Shangchuan family taste some suffering first. And also weaken the spirit of those black bears. It will not be too late for us to strike then. As the people of Xian often say, the fisherman reaps the benefits. Lord is wise. Countless people began to praise. Debauchee was extremely pleased. If this seats estimates correctly, I believe that there will be less than 200 of the Shangchuan members that will be able to return from this clash. Please subscribe to this channel, so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1157. Utter Destruction. 3,000 burly bodies stepped forward. Saint Venerable Lu and the rest remained behind to hold the fort. They absolutely must not strike before the experts on the other side have struck. The 8 of them were the most important forces protecting the 3,000 warriors of the Eagle clan. Before the 3,000 Eagle warriors fully recovered, they could not afford any mistakes. As to the current situation, Saint Venerable Lu and the rest were completely sure that this battle didn't need them. Big Bear and his clan could cope with it. What they need to do was to wait silently, until the experts from the enemy side could no longer endure it. 3,000 bear warriors charged ahead, the sound of their heavy footsteps turning into an unstoppable flow. 3,000 pairs of eyes were filled with the crazed intention to battle. Their killing intent was surging through the heavens. Although the strange races were conjoined twins, one of them was the equivalent of 2 regular humans, but they still could not compare to the sturdiness of the warriors of the Bear clan. These 2 troops were like 2 clashing currents. They hollered and charged forward, with no intentions of turning back. Right now, the earth quaked even more. There were merely 100 zhang distance between them. Like a tornado, both sides only took a couple of steps before clashing. And instantly, blood rained down. Dismembered body parts scattered about. From an outsider's perspective, the moment both sides clashed, they advanced ahead regardless of everything. Those who fell down halfway were instantly turned into a pile of meat paste. Pitiful cries. Loud hollers. The sounds of weapons clashing rang throughout the place, shaking the heavens, shocking everyone from the Deca family. So, the fighting capabilities of Tianfa Beast Kings are this terrifying. This battle had started quickly, but ended even faster. The moment the 2 forces met, it unraveled the bloodiest, cruelest death battle. Just as Debauchee predicted, the warriors of the Bear clan were stronger than the warriors of the Shangchuan family, especially when all of them were equipped with the divine-grade weapons that Jun Moxie had specially prepared for them. Every one of it was heavy, broad and long. Almost 2 meters in length. The moment it was used, it was a blinding sight. A blade like this, even without a sharp knife blade, with the immense weight of the blade and the tremendous strength of the bear warriors, it was enough to turn a person into meat paste. The strange races undoubtedly had a tenacious life, surpassing that of regular humans. Even if a long sword pierced through their hearts or any vital organs, the other half of their bodies would still be able to continue fighting. But, even with such a strong, unique physique. It was unable to bear the hacking of such a long, sharp and heavy blade. Ah! The moment the blade was swung, the person turned into 4 pieces. No matter how tenacious they were, in the face of these ferocious soldiers, it was a joke. Merely a joke. After all, not all the strange races were hell-enduring ghosts. Although there were many of them in this battle, there were only 80 of them that could conceal themselves. In this sort of large-scale, chaotic battle, although they managed to be of use and injured several warriors from the Bear clan, it was also because of a chaos like this that many hell-enduring ghosts were killed in the crossfire. 3,000 giant blades that were 2 meters long being lifted at the same time. Even if you knew how to conceal yourself, your body wasn't capable of truly turning into thin air, right? If you were unlucky and got chopped, sending your blood flying, the next moment, all the blades of the Bear clan rained down on you. The moment both parties clashed, there were at least 30 hell-enduring ghosts that had died in the messy crossfire. Any random hell-enduring ghosts had considerable prowess. They would be of significant impact in determining the outcome in individual battles or battles of smaller scales with the help of their stealth techniques. But in a large-scale battle where 10,000s of people were fighting, in the messy killings, the cons of this stealth techniques was completely clear. Because no matter how good they were at concealing themselves, they were unable to completely dodge the attacks from experts coming from all directions. Thus, it was reasonable for this sort of casualty to appear. It was to be expected. Towards the end, Shengchuan Paku noticed something was wrong and immediately ordered for all the hell-enduring ghosts to retreat. His heart ached so much that he almost passed out. He had deployed 76 hell-enduring ghosts to take advantage in the crowd, but he had not expected to pay such a heavy and painful price for it. There were less than 50 that managed to return, and almost 30% of them were injured. This was a huge blow to the Shangchuan family. But after the hell-enduring ghosts retreated from the battle turned into a one-sided massacre. The Bear warriors were most cautious and worried about those who are able to conceal themselves. They're not afraid that they would attack them, but afraid that they would sneak past them and attack their eagle brothers who were still recovering. Thus, all of them were under immense mental pressure during the battle. And at the same time, very cautious. But the moment the hell-enduring ghosts of the Shengchuan family retreated, all the Bear warriors were like wild cattle that were released from their fence. Blades of 2 meters length, any random one of them easily weighing 100 kg, came hacking down. It was like cutting rice. One swing sliced an entire patch. Towards the back, Big Bear got into the mood and ordered his men to form into groups of 10, swinging their blades at the same time. 10 blades swinging at the same time. In the radius of 30 zhang, numerous heads rolled on the ground. Like a trailer carrying watermelons had been overturned. The heads rolled about everywhere. Fresh blood sprayed like fountains, forming beautiful rainbows in the air before landing on the ground. They vaporized on the dark red soil. Kill! Don't leave a single one of them. Big Bear hollered with a sinister look. Kill! All the men of the Bear clan yelled at the same time. The battle inclination that had accumulated for numerous years. The ferocious nature of Xian beasts that had been suppressed in their bones exploded in this bloody battle. Such terrifying Bear warriors. Such terrifying Tian Fa warriors. Shangchuan Pa Ku turned pale. Looking at the current battle, his entire body couldn't help but tremble. His men were still charging ahead, but Shangchuan Pa Ku knew that this battle was over. No matter how it ended, he was done for. He had completely lost. No matter how ferocious or bloodthirsty, The fact that there was a great disparity in strength was in his face. Aside from the hell-enduring ghosts that had retreated, the rest of the men were only 9th-level endurers. They were, at best, the equivalent of the spirit Xians, fighting against 3,000 Saint Emperor experts. And all of them wields a divine weapon. This sort of disparity. It was the difference between heaven and earth. It would only be a one-sided massacre. How many men went up, that was how many men would die. That bunch of stupid black bears will absolutely show no mercy. With the sounds of battle, the blood on the ground became thicker and thicker. Initially, due to the high temperature of the ground, it could quickly evaporate and only leave a brown stain behind. But right now, it was puddles of blood. In such a hot environment, it couldn't evaporate in time. All of these bear warriors was covered in blood. But there was little blood that had come from their own injuries. The injuries that a bunch of mediocre bugs can do to them was too little. Aside from the few heavier injuries from the hell-enduring ghosts at the beginning of the battle, almost nobody had new injuries. With the retreat of the hell-enduring ghosts, the disparity in strength was even greater. They did not even get hurt. 3,000 brave warriors from the Bear clan. When faced with the strange race's force that was multiple folds of their numbers, the death count was 0. This was to be expected. No matter how many ants there were, it was insignificant before an elephant. Especially when it was not only one elephant, but a considerable number of them. Not one of the 3,000 men from the Bear clan were willing to back off, even those who were injured due to the hell-enduring ghosts. All of them waved their blades with all their might, like an enormous blade mountain, carrying out its one-sided massacre, unceasingly hacking and chopping away. Behind them, the ground was covered in meat paste. Not a single proper corpse remained. Probably because all of them wielded their blades at the same time. One member of the strange races would have 10 blades flying at them. Thus, they ended up in more than 40 pieces. The moment they were stuck, they were ripped into shreds. Before the 3,000 warriors of the Bear clan, the Shangchuan tribe consisting of nearly 10,000 men were all turned into blood puddles and minced meat in less than a joss stick's time. And the 3,000 bear warriors, under Big Bear's lead, stood before the strange races, stepping on the fresh blood and meat paste. 3,000 pairs of big eyes were oozing with chilling killing intent. That eerie killing aura. Simultaneously, these bloodthirsty eyes all glanced at the strange races that were gathering behind the Shangchuan family. The eyes of all these bear warriors were filled with eagerness, thirst for another round of slaughter. Come, another spirited battle. It was clear that to them, this battle was not intense enough. It's not of sufficient quality. This was not satisfying yet. 3,000 shiny big blades were lowered uniformly. The sticky fresh blood trickled endlessly onto the ground. There were dozens of warriors who had suffered severe injuries earlier due to the sudden attacks from the concealed hell-enduring ghosts. But right now, they still remained in the formation. Not the slightest bit of pain or discomfort showed on their faces. As if those open wounds and scars that were bleeding were not on their bodies. Please subscribe to this channel, so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1158. Weakness of the Stealth Kills Technique. Before they set out, Jun Moxie had given everyone a heaven reversal pill to preserve their lives. But right now, they were still forcefully enduring the pain from their injuries. Because all of them felt that these light injuries were still far from needing the effects of the heaven reversal pills. We can still endure. Now is still not the time to use the divine pills. On the other side, The strange races who had always been famed for being brutal and bloodthirsty were all showing looks of shock and fear in their eyes. This included debauchee, who had been watching from the back as well. Originally, debauchee thought that he had already given an overly high estimation of the bear tribe's strength. But never would he have imagined that his evaluation had still been too low. With a flap of its powerful wings, the first one to finish restoring its condition, the Eagle King flew over and landed before Big Bear. The Eagle King's cultivation was the most profound among the Eagle tribe, and naturally recovered the fastest. Big Bear made a sound in his throat and transmitted his voice. "What are you doing? You are still too temperamental." Eagle King snorted coldly. "The mission that eldest sister and brother-in-law gave us was to hold on for as long as possible. To obstruct the progression of the strange race's army. But just a random trash that appeared was enough to make you angry and pit injuries against it. How many lives do you have to play with your opponent like that? We can die, but we still need to at least wait until the backup army arrives before we are allowed to die. Before they reach here, we must not die no matter what. What we need to do now is to delay for as long as possible. Only by living can we stop the strange races from marching into the Xian continent." Big Bear opened and closed his mouth several times, finally lowering his head and mumbling, "You're right. I was too blinded by rage just now." This admittance of his mistake had truly opened up a new page in history. This was the mighty Bear King of Tianfa, Big Bear. For the first time in history, this was the first time he'd actually admitted that he had been wrong. "Since we're going to fight a long battle, we need to first be able to rein our tempers in." Eagle King's eyes shone as he added, "We still have the 8 great Saint Venerable Seniors behind us. Apart from our own people, there's no way for the enemies to know about this. This is also our strongest trump card. Although those strange races are many, they have very limited true experts. As long as we do not break ranks and remain calm, we can definitely hold on." "Yes." Big Bear was completely convinced as he nodded. "I'll just listen to you then. Kiki, little eagle, you're truly something else. That brain of yours is truly sly and scheming. I hadn't noticed this in the past before." "Who are you calling sly? Your sister is sly. This is called intelligent. Understand?" Eagle King rolled his eyes and looked at this muscle-headed fellow speechlessly. "Have you discovered? After that battle, we've already exposed a grave weakness of those strange races. Or rather, it's a flaw that we can take advantage of." "Weakness? Flaw? Quick, say it more clearly." Big Bear raised his brows and asked hurriedly. "The ones who fought the strange races was your bear tribe. And the ones who came out with the overwhelming victory was also you all. Now, as the king of the bear tribe, you actually hadn't discovered anything? Could it be that the heads of you bears are really all filled with muscles?" Eagle King slapped his forehead and sighed. "The so-called weakness is that those experts of the strange races, the ones who can conceal themselves, are not suitable for chaotic large-scale battles." Those fellows who could conceal themselves are not suitable for large-scale battles. That can't be right. Weren't our brothers wounded by those stealth guys? The one-sided slaughter had only begun after they'd backed off." Big Bear retorted, quite clearly not having noticed this point. Eagle King snorted and continued with a dark expression. "I'm not saying that they cannot participate in chaotic battles, but that their stealth kills technique is not suitable for chaotic battles." After some thought, Eagle King added another sentence. "More specifically, that mysterious concealment technique exposes them to more dangers in large-scale chaotic battles." "What does that mean?" Big Bear widened his eyes, feeling somewhat confused. Take this king for example. I fight exactly the same way whether it's a one-on-one fight or a chaotic battle. I've heard of any experts that are only strong on single fights and becomes useless in chaotic battles are useless. What kind of reason is that? What are you talking about? You stupid bear. You retarded bear. It's too kind to say that your head is all filled with muscles. Your brain is simply a lunk of rock. A rock. It can't even move a single bit. Eagle King nearly leapt up and down on the spot in anger. What can a fellow with a rock for brains understand? It's truly too much of a waste of his saliva to talk to him. As he thought here, Eagle King was even more impressed with Jun Moxie now. How come this dumb bear could always understand when brother-in-law talks to it? This old eagle has wasted several hundred years just trying to talk sense to this bear. After fuming for a long time, he finally gritted his teeth and transmitted. I was talking about their stealth techniques. Understand? You fellow are the one with muscles for brains. How would I not know that you were talking about their stealth techniques? But is that even related? Big Bear said unhappily. Your words were all over the place, without any hint of logic. I've never heard that stealth techniques cannot be used for large-scale fights. The grand battle is right before us, and the enemies are growing more and more plentiful. Yet, you're here talking about these nonsensical stuff. If the best timing for battle was delayed, what should we do? Brother, little eagle, please put your good brains to proper use, all right? If you can't do that, just step to the side and watch how this elder brother kill. You're actually talking to me about missing the opportune moment to fight? I'm going to fecking spit out a mouthful of blood. Eagle King was on the verge of a mental collapse. You're the fecking king of a tribe, But apart from keeping nonsense in your brain, is there really nothing else? Didn't you notice that nearly 30 hell-enduring ghosts died by your blades just now? Do you know what that means? Of course. Big Bear said arrogantly. That naturally means that our bear tribe contributed greatly to the war. How would this king not know? Feck. Who's talking with you about contributions? And, since you managed to notice it, you actually did not see that obvious weakness? Eagle King widened his eyes with disbelief. Fourth brother, why you're my dear brother, Bullshit. Big Bear rolled his eyes. We're obviously brothers. Could it be that you didn't take me as a brother normally? If that's the case, you little twat is too much. I give up. I truly give up. Eagle King felt like crying. I'll be honest with you. Please spare me, Big Bear was completely speechless. I'll explain it to you bit by bit. Then. Look. Most of the 30 hell-enduring ghosts that died were low-level hell-enduring ghosts. A small portion, about 4 or 5, are middle-level hell-enduring ghosts. The middle-level ones roughly have strength equivalent to venerables. If not for those guys, I might not have been able to tell at all. But, according to the standards of the venerables in our Xian continent, no matter how weak a venerable is, they wouldn't be so weak to the point of being killed in just a few slices. But these strange races still died. That point is undoubtedly very illogical. Eagle King's voice turned quicker and more urgent. That Sichuan Pagua whom you exchanged blows with a moment ago was also around the level of middle-level hell-enduring ghosts. While it could be considered to be ranked somewhat higher, it shouldn't be by much. Yet, that fellow could still force you into a passive state with nearly no opportunity to attack. How awe-inspiring and incisive was that? I understand. The Bear King's eyes widened. You understand? But I haven't even finished yet. Eagle King gasped with disbelief. Did this fourth brother of his suddenly become clever? After talking for so long, you little fellow is just using a roundabout manner to criticize me. You're complaining that I couldn't handle that little piece of trash and are here to goad at me. Dang it. You didn't experience the annoyance of dealing with that invisible little fecker. So you don't know how it had been for me. It's easy to talk and judge while standing from the sidelines. Feck. If you have the abilities, why don't you go and try it for yourself? Big Bear growled unhappily. Ah. Big brother. What kind of understanding is this considered? Stop messing around. Let me finish speaking. Based on what I said earlier, there were at least 4 or 5 enemies with that kind of strength among those who were killed just now. Can you believe that with just the strength of those guys under you, that they could kill them so simply, even cutting down 20, 30 with ease? And on our side, there wasn't even a single casualty, and nobody even lost their ability to continue fighting. You should know the strength of your own men very well. It can't be that all of them are also Saint Emperors like you, right? You're right. Now that you mentioned it, there seems to be something strange about it. Big Bear finally understood. Raising his brows, he wondered in deep thought. So what can be the reason? My dearest brother. Stop trying to think about it. By the time you manage to think it through, the next war for seizing the heavens would have started. Eagle King rolled his eyes and snapped. Let me tell you the whole thing directly. If I guess boldly, these strange races, even the high-level ones, need to pay a large price to make use of the stealth kills technique. Eagle King said those words slowly. And that price is most likely that they need to sacrifice their defense. In other words, the Xian Qi protecting them is lowered to the lowest point the moment they use that technique. Although they can completely conceal themselves and confuse the enemy, even allowing them to attack at will, the moment they suffer any attacks, even a coincidental bump, it would result in huge damages. This is especially more pronounced against opponents much more powerful than them. The moment they get hit, it will be a heavy injury. If they came up against an opponent who used self-detonation to catch them, they would definitely pay with their lives. This is unlike us who can take on the self-detonation of a weaker opponent and survive by relying on our external defensive Xian Qi to soak up the damage. Apart from that, this matter does not have any other logical explanations. Eagle King snorted coldly as a fierce glint appeared in his eyes. Otherwise, even if those experts were affected by the stray energy ripples in the chaotic battle just now, they should be able to avoid any injuries with just their cultivation of a venerable. And even if they made a mistake and received a direct hit, they shouldn't die in a single strike. No matter how coincidental it is, it shouldn't be possible for them to die in large patches of 20, 30 experts in a few attacks. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1159. This Granddaddy hasn't killed to my fill yet. That is indeed strange. With their standards, it shouldn't be so easy for them to die. Big Bear rubbed his chin with deep consideration. Although a venerable has no hopes of winning against Saint and Saint Emperor level opponents, it shouldn't be to the point where they would die with just a single attack. If it were that simple, that brat that fought against me earlier would have been killed long ago. There's even less need to talk about accidental strikes. But in the end, it was indeed these accidental strikes that killed so many. Eagle King added. If that's the case, those sneaky bastards are truly not suitable to large-scale battles. At least, they can't use those donghua stealth techniques to attack in the middle of a large-scale battle. Big Bear smiled happily. Earlier, against Sichuan Pagua, he could be said to have expended a great amount of effort. Ultimately, he was unable to do anything to the other fellow. And if not for him remembering the repeated words of warning from Jun Moxie to focus on defending all the way, he might truly have been unable to retreat in one piece. But if those hell-enduring ghosts were truly not suitable to fight in large-scale battles, or if they couldn't utilize their hateful stealth techniques in chaotic battles, this point alone meant that they would be able to hold on for much longer in this campaign to hold the lines. Although that is the case, we still cannot be blindly optimistic right now. Although those bastards are not suitable for large-scale battles, it'll still depend on luck to kill or injure them in group battles. And as our numbers dwindle, our advantage will also disappear quickly. After all, we still won't be able to tell where those bastards are hiding. Eagle King's expression turned heavy. Also, although I've discovered this point, we still cannot pinpoint a good strategy to make full use of this knowledge of their weakness. If only elder sister or brother-in-law were here, when it comes to wits for battle, they are the true professionals. With just this bunch of fellows, are they still fit to have elder sister and brother-in-law act personally? Big Bear snorted with disdain. If those annoying fellows don't use their concealment techniques, this daddy could beat up 10 of them alone. Eagle King wrinkled his mouth and rolled his eyes, taking Big Bear's words as a fart. Is there a reason for others to not use this kind of advantageous skill that allowed them to fight against someone stronger? If it were you, would you not use it? Eagle King felt that staying together with this idiot bear would lower his intelligence, so he stepped away decisively, moving as far away from that fellow as possible. If his clever brains also ended up turning into a rock or a pile of muscles or whatever, that would be truly unimaginable. As they were conversing secretly about how to best use this new discovery against the strange races, the other side was also discussing urgently. Both sides were observing each other, and the battle had fallen into a temporary stalemate. There was no denying that the Tianfa Bear tribe's surprising battle strength and ruthless killing methods had stunned all these bloodthirsty strange races warriors at this moment. A full 10,000-strong army. If those conjoined monsters were split apart down the middle, it would be 20,000 full-bodied men. But just like that, they had been slaughtered and cut apart. Furthermore, everything had been witnessed clearly by the crowd. What kind of horrifying image was this? Some of the female conjoined parts of the strange races had already begun to vomit. Shengchuan Ku looked dumbly at the mess of gore before him, and his originally resolute face turned somewhat white. A look of indescribable pain and hate flickered in his eyes, as well as fear. In the sudden volcanic eruptions earlier, these strange race experts mostly only cared about saving themselves, fleeing quickly while leaving the old, weak, and sick to die under the hail of fire and ash. These 10,000 experts could be said to be the final vestige of the Shengchuan clan's forces. At the same time, they were also the strongest forces. Otherwise, how could any random person have the strength of a 9th-level hell-enduring ghost? However, such a force had not even lasted past the time it took for a stick of incense to burn through, before being completely defeated. Apart from the less than 50 hell-enduring ghosts that managed to escape, the rest were all gone. From now on, the Shengchuan clan could basically be considered to have been annihilated. Right now, the best result for the remnants of their clan would be to become the slaves of the other clans. At this time, the 3,000 mighty bear warriors in Shengchuan Ku's eyes had already become an unassailable and invincible wall of steel. Shengchuan Ku was quite sure that even if they gathered all the most elite forces from the nearby 10 large clans to mount a frontal charge, even if they could ultimately break through, victory would come at an unimaginable cost. Behind him, Debauchee's lips were trembling slightly, and his throat was somewhat dry. Taking a deep breath, he forced himself to calm down. Sitting atop a mountain and watching while two tigers battle was undoubtedly a nice thing. But what if it wasn't two tigers fighting, but a tiger and a cat? Or what if it was a group of tigers fighting against a group of cats? On his side, those other experts who had been urging him to join forces with the Shangchuan clan to fight a moment ago were completely stunned now. Right now, their gazes were only filled with fear and some relief. Luckily, we didn't go up just now. The leader is indeed far-sighted and wise. Ah! In that moment, tens of worshipful gazes swept across Debauchee's face. Normally, Debauchee would feel happy and proud when he was shown this kind of respect, but right now, he only felt that his heart was cold, and his back was drenched with sweat. The Shangchuan clan's fate had already been determined, and that was naturally a good thing for them. However, the ones who would face the fierce bear tribe warriors next had now become them. Could they withstand the charge? Or rather, did they have the ability to win and open up the first door into the Xian continent for the rest of their race? The mantis stalks the cicada, while the oriole lurks behind. In such a situation, the oriole would undoubtedly end up as the biggest winner. But what if the cicada was actually a machine robot cicada with terrifying strength far surpassing both the mantis and the oriole's expectations? What would the result be? Standing across from the mighty bear tribe warriors, being stared down by the murderous big bear, Debauchee felt a hint of regret for the first time. At this time, Big Bear and Eagle King had already finished their discussion. Taking a few steps forward, Big Bear hollered brazenly. Strange races, pieces of trash opposite. Who else dares to come forward to fight another round? This Granddaddy hasn't killed to my fill yet. That roar was deafeningly loud and domineering, and even the volcano in the distance seemed to be affected by it, turning even more aggressive. A single hero standing at the entrance of a pass, blocking an army of 10,000. Propping up the sky and stabilizing the earth with just the might of one person. Right now, those two sentences could be used perfectly to describe Big Bear. Seeing the ferocity of their king and the overbearing might of a hero, the other 3,000 bears also felt a surge of hot blood rise in their chest. Without any hesitation, they all took a step forward. 3,000 heavy feet landed together at the same time, triggering a loud boom. At the same time, a huge cloud of dust was stirred into the air. The 3,000 mighty bears roared in unison. Who else dares to come forward to fight another round? This Granddaddy hasn't killed to my fill yet. Of these 3,000 bear warriors, even the weakest had reached the strength of a first-level venerable. As they roared together in unison using their Xian energy to boost their voice, it was truly a heaven-shaking sound. It was as if a primordial battle god had just burst out of the earth, roaring to the sky. On the other side, Shangchuan Ku and Debauchee only felt a wave of dust sweeping madly towards them, causing them to feel a sense of suffocation. In that moment, they could not help but take a large step backwards. Heavens! To think that they haven't killed to their fill yet after such a bloody slaughter? Just what kind of existences are they? It wasn't just these two. The countless other warriors of the strange races also retreated several steps backwards. A single roar had forced tens of thousands of strange races warriors to retreat. What kind of dominance was this? Who could face this mighty army? Just at this time, the noisy howling of the wind rang out, growing louder and louder. Both sides looked up at the same time, only to find that the previously violent southwestern wind had actually changed directions, turning into a northeastern wind. The southwestern wind was clearly still blowing, but the even more tyrannical northeastern wind was growing stronger still. In the sky, two patches of clouds, one traveling south, and the other north, collided violently together under the urgings of the wind behind them. A terrifying sound rang out, and countless fist-sized hailstones rained down on everyone. The Eagle Tribe warriors had already completely recovered now, and they lined up behind the Bear Tribe warriors, standing silently. With their cultivation, although this hail was sudden and strong, it only caused some insignificant pain. It wasn't anything unbearable. But it was a different case for the people on Debauchee's side. Although their soldiers were arriving in an unceasing wave, and in just a short moment had already gathered no less than 40 to 50,000 troops, and there were also a good number of experts among them, but there was still a huge difference in the strength of the individuals. Because of how sudden the onslaught of this unexpected, natural disaster had been, and with them being too closely packed together with nowhere to hide, the hailstones smashed painfully down upon them. The unlucky ones even ended up with their entire heads filled with bloody wounds. However, both sides did not pay attention to this. They were all looking upwards at the sky with incredulity. Because this sudden storm of hailstones were simply too illogical. It was too absurd. However, such an absurd thing had actually happened. That was not all. The matter of the wind blowing both directions at once, even colliding together forcefully like this, was something that they had also never seen or heard of before. What exactly is going on? The hailstones fell for a moment, and then stopped as suddenly as it arrived. Such a situation was as if the heavens were throwing a tantrum, grabbing a large pail of hailstones and chucking them down directly. When the pail was empty, that was the end of it. Although this rain of hailstones was short-lived, the ground was still filled with a thick layer of hailstones the size of cobblestones, glistening in the sun. The only thing was that this area's temperature was too high and the ice melted rapidly, turning the land into wet pond. The water then evaporated rapidly, turning into green steam with a speed visible to the naked eye, rising into the air and forming heavy rain clouds. The southwestern wind was still blowing strongly, but everyone could still clearly feel that the northeastern wind that shouldn't have appeared had become even stronger. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1160. One sword destroying heaven's chosen. The strangely colored ashen fog that was moving towards the north with great momentum was suddenly pushed back, until finally, it actually changed directions, turning back towards the southwest. As the northeastern wind grew stronger, the boiling air in the area gradually turned cooler. Until finally, everyone watched with shocked eyes as countless stones and large branches flew over their heads like a cloud. Was this strange northeastern wind really that strong? The original pencil-straight pillar of smoke that spewed out from the volcanoes only began to blow southwest when it reached a height of several tens of zhang. But now, it was being blown in the other direction even before it barely reached a height of 4, 5 zhang. The multicolored noxious fumes covered the entire south of the Pillar of Heaven's mountains, spreading across the entire land in an all-encompassing manner. This sight caused all the people of the strange races to be completely shocked. Everyone knew that that thing was clearly poisonous, and they already felt uncomfortable breathing it in earlier. And now, it was pouring unceasingly into their homeland. Just how much damage would that cause? Everyone was clear about it in their hearts. Ha 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 ha. Big Bear took a large breath and roared with laughter that sounded like thunder. Double-headed freaks. Did you see that? Our brother-in-law used to say that the heavens watch everything that mortals do. Looks like the heavens are quite unhappy with you lot, and sent a divine wind to poison you disgusting lot to death. An enraged roar suddenly rang out from the back as a figure flashed in the air. A two-headed warrior of the strange races, covered in silver light, appeared in the sky, his physique abnormally large. Following that person growled. A mere black bear actually dares to be so arrogant. See if this seat doesn't retrieve your dang bear head. Before his words landed, a pair of dazzling light flashed in the sky, sweeping towards Big Bear. Frenzy Blade Enduring Earth. The reason the strange races Enduring Earths were so wild was because of their blade. The Enduring Earths only cultivated one thing their entire lives: the Tao of Blade. Anyone that could be called Frenzy Blade Enduring Earths was an expert of the blade. Moreover, this person was even someone that had reached the level of Frenzy Blade Enduring Earth with both the male and female body, and it was equivalent to two same-level experts unleashing their most lethal attacks towards Big Bear at the same time. Such experts were only one step away from reaching the strength of the lowest grade of supremacy enduring heavens. Such existences had, in the hearts of the strange races, already reached a level of being able to reign over an entire area. When Deku Bushang and Shangchuan Paku saw this figure appear, their faces were instantly filled with joy. This person that stood out was the #1 expert in their area, the Frenzy Blade Enduring Earth, Xiangshang Nu Ju. Most of the strange races were led by the male body, while the female body acted as support. There was only a small minority whose female side was stronger than their male side. And so, the female body occupied the leading position. And Xiangshang Nu Ju was exactly such an existence. His conjoined female twin, and also his wife, loved chrysanthemums, especially the chrysanthemum in full bloom. Thus, he had such a name. Fecking hell. Your demeanor is pretty intimidating. Ha! Do you think this daddy is truly afraid of you? Having two heads doesn't mean that you will have double the guts. What are you hollering about? Did someone in your family die? Big Bear's huge body sprang up as he brandished the Bear King's sword in midair, cursing as he charged forward. The Bear King's sword instantly morphed into a stream of light, dazzling and unyielding, surging upwards. This was a mystical sword technique that Jun Moxie had personally taught to him. One sword destroying heaven's chosen. Against attacks from above, this was an extremely effective surprise counter. Behind the Eagle tribe, one of the old beast kings, Saint Venerable Huang, had only begun to move when the bear Saint Venerable grabbed his arm and shook his head lightly. Although we are currently occupying the advantageous position, even with this Frenzy Blade Enduring Earth, it's still not the time for us to make a move. What we need to deal with are the other side's supremacy enduring heavens. If they discovered that we're prepared, I'm afraid it'll truly be that none of those 6,000 kids will be able to return safely. But Little Bear, that lad Little Bear is no match for that two-headed fellow. Saint Venerable Huang said anxiously. Could it be that we have to watch helplessly as he sends himself to death? You should know. If Little Bear dies, the blow to the bear tribe will be large enough to destroy them. Those 3,000 bear tribe warriors will all descend into madness. At that time, even if all of us take action together, it wouldn't be able to do anything. Do you think that I don't understand the consequences? Am I not part of the bear tribe as well? However, even if all 3,000 of them turned mad and sent themselves to death, we still cannot make a move lightly. Saint Venerable Bear grunted with rage. We're at war right now. And war is inevitably accompanied by sacrifices. There is no place for emotions. If we cannot deal heavy damage to a few supremacy enduring heavens at the start, the following battles will only become much harder. The war has only just begun. The main force of the strange races is still tens of thousands li away. If we act now, we will completely expose our hidden cards. Right now, we can only put our faith in Little Bear. It's his luck if he lives, and it'll be his fate if he dies. Life and death will be left up to the heavens. Saint Venerable Bear said coldly. No matter who it is for, we cannot mess up the big picture. But Saint Venerable Huang finally softened his stance. However, his eyes were filled with tears. Old Bear. Little Bear is your own grandson. He's the only remaining bloodline of your Bear King's lineage. Saint Venerable Bear turned his aged face away as the muscles on his cheeks twitched. Big Bear is indeed my grandson. But which of the Tianfa warriors on the battlefield isn't our people's sons and grandsons? What is the use of talking about bloodlines on a battlefield of life and death? Is our Bear King lineage that much more precious and noble than others? Hearing this, Saint Venerable Huang sighed and did not say any more. Saint Venerable Lu also nodded and said with a light sigh. Old Bear's decision is right. In this kind of situation, what we're planning to do is only to perish along with the enemy supremacy enduring heavens. If each of us can drag two of them down with us, that will naturally be the best. But if that isn't possible, we need to at least bring one to the grave with us. Since we've come here, which one of us still holds any hope of going back alive? At such a time, bloodlines and such are no longer important. The only thing of importance is the 10,000-year-old glory of our Tianfa. The 10,000 years old backbone of our Tianfa. It's just death. If Big Bear is to die here, I will only say a word of bravo. Apart from that, this old man has nothing else to say. Saint Venerable Bear's white hair flew up softly behind him, and he seemed like a resolute and lonely statue. However, his hands had already balled up tightly into fists unknowingly. His eyes were also watching Big Bear's dangerous fight in the air. Although his mouth said that he didn't care, and his actions were restrained, but his heart still couldn't remain indifferent. Little Bear. My grandchild. You must not die. Live on. You must live. Big Bear's sword turned into a streak of light, stabbing upwards without hesitation. Qiangshang Nu Ju laughed madly, his voice alternating between male and female. At times rough, and at times shrill. Two bolts of lightning like blade light struck down from the sky. The gaze in both sides' eyes were very obvious. A quick battle, deciding the victor with one move. Kill. As the sword and blade light neared each other, Big Bear roared madly, his eyes blood red. All his Saint Emperor Xian Qi had been poured into his sword without any reservation. Dang! In the instant that the blades collided, a bright flash illuminated the entire sky. The people at the bottom instantly felt a stabbing pain in their eyes, as if someone was being electrocuted before them. Following that, there was a continuous stream of dang 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 sounds. Qiangshang Nu Ju had a strange smile on his face. The moment the male body's blade smashed against Big Bear's Bear King sword, the female side whirled around and followed up with another heavy strike. In the time for a single breath to transpire, the two's long blades had already rained down against Big Bear's sword 10 to 100 times. With the intricate senses of an expert, Qiangshang Nu Ju could clearly sense the ferocity of Big Bear's attack. At this time, even if they could incapacitate Big Bear and remove his head in one strike, they would still be in big trouble if they couldn't stop the sword. There was no possibility of any differences. And that one sword strike would definitely deal huge or even lethal damage. The reason why Qiangshang Nu Ju dared to fight Big Bear without using his stealth kills technique was because he was considered to be on the same cultivation level as Big Bear. And there was only one Big Bear, while Qiangshang Nu Ju could be counted as two people joining hands. Could it be that two people with perfect synergy could not even defeat one enemy? More importantly, the Bear tribe had just obtained a huge victory and their side's morale was low. Only by killing Big Bear in a frontal battle could they reverse this situation. But Qiangshang Nu Ju would never have expected that such a powerful and strange sword technique would actually exist in this world, allowing Big Bear's strength to multiply to a point that even before the sword reached, they could already clearly sense the threat of death. So right now, Qiangshang Nu Ju only cared about attacking this sword in a frenzied manner. Only by thoroughly defeating this sword technique and dissipating the feeling of death could they break the technique and ensure Big Bear's death. But Big Bear's sword still maintained the same power, and the long sword vibrated gently. However, fresh blood was already flowing out of his mouth. Faced with the storm-like assault of the enemy and using just the strength of one person against the joint attacks of two peak third-level Saint Emperor's equivalents, Big Bear's internal organs had already been jolted heavily. However, he still held on resolutely, stubbornly clenching his teeth and staring widely as he roared out the same words, "One sword breaking heaven's chosen." No matter how many times he paced before the borders of life and death, it was still the same, "One sword breaking heaven's chosen." Although Big Bear's sword light had turned a little scattered, he ultimately still managed to withstand Qiangshang Nu Ju's violent attacks, allowing the true strength of this sword to unleash like the brilliant feathers of a peacock. This story will be continued to chapter 1161. For those of you who are not subscribed yet, please subscribe. The interesting and best stories will be updated. See you again in the next episode.